trunk, as a signaling group, all that stuff in CM, and we're not going to stop on how to do it. I mean, you have the steps and the recipe, let's say, to do it, but I'm not going to stop on how AR works or how stuff on CM works, because we want to focus on system manager and session manager. So again, just let me know if you have any experience with CM, system manager, and session manager, and maybe we start here with you,
Sure.
Jesse.
My name is Jesse Ramos. I'm currently working for El Paso Electric up in El Paso, Texas. And we just migrated from 5.2 to 7.0.
Okay.
We're planning on bringing SIP in, so they asked me to take this class. We use Converge 1 for our upgrade. And I don't have any session manager or system manager administration.
CM?
CM, yes.
Okay.
And contact center.
So you already have a session manager with the upgrade?
Yes.
It's already up and
It's
running?
already installed. We haven't touched it.
Okay. And you said that you're planning on having SIP endpoints, or you're having your session manager just for routing purposes?
SIP trunks.
SIP trunks, okay. So not SIP endpoints right now, only SIP trunks.
SIP trunks.
Okay.
Eventually, SIP endpoints.
Eventually
in
SIP
some of our
endpoints.
areas.
Okay. Let me keep going maybe with you.
Yeah, Andy McRae. I'm a Converge 1 maintenance engineer. I've been doing little bitty Avaya back Lucent days stuff, and then Definity and Communication Manager. So I'm strong on Communication Manager. Have had a good bit of opportunity in System Session Manager to troubleshoot alarms, look into entity links down, mostly related to SIP trunking. Very, very little SIP endpoint touch yet, but I can definitely sing and dance pretty well in the communication manager side of things, so I can help with the ARS or whatever that there.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for the ability to maintain your solution, so, and many other Converge 1 customers that are, it seems that most of our base is implementing SIP for trunking, more than going endpoints. We've not, for whatever reason, really seen a massive rollout of SIP endpoint solutions as yet. So
Okay.
pretty much everything is at the very least keeping CM as a feature server, but in the vast majority of our implementations, it's the, whatever they call the evolution solution. So.
Yeah, and I think that 99% of the Avaya customers are still with CM as an evolution server, because they still have some TDM stuff. Not everything is SIP. So
Yep.
I think only 2 or 3 customers are going with the CM as a feature server.
Right.
Which I hate those names, because the 2 of them are feature servers, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they pick those names.
It doesn't seem like there's a strong demarcation between them.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a little bit of both in everything, it seems.
Okay, Andrew, welcome. Yeah, you're gonna like the class. You're gonna learn a lot on session manager, system manager.
Excellent.
And, yeah, Anita, what about you?
I'm Anita Harrison. I'm a maintenance engineer with C1. I work the night shift, so I'm gonna do my best to try to stay awake.
I'll wake you up and I see you. So.
I mostly utilize CM. I've poked around in system and session manager, but not enough to feel comfortable with what I'm doing.
Okay. You're gonna feel more comfortable for sure by Friday. Okay, let's see. Let me continue here.
My name is Alex Gonzalez. I work for MSC Industrial Supply Company. I'm a voice systems engineer. I'm pretty well versed in a lot of the Avaya software and hardware since the mid-90s. So CM, modular messaging, audix, all that. Recently, our company rolled out upgraded IP offices that we had at 80 some odd branch offices that we did. They all now register through to our main core facility through SIP trunks, and we have been actually deploying SIP endpoints to our call center agents at each of these offices. So I have a very strong background with CM, but I have just only been dabbling so far in session managers and system manager. So I'd like to learn more about it and be able to, help manage our office. with that
Okay.
technology.
Perfect. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Alex Cepeda, colleague of Alex Gonzalez is here, also with MSC Industrial on the voice team. And as Gonzo stated, not just we had 86 branches that converted over to SIP, as well as our 5 main call centers. We did a complete overhaul, TDM to H323 and SIP.
Thanks.
We've been, a lot of the phones that we've been deploying are these phones actually. These might be the 9611s, but we deployed the 9608s, and we actually just converted them over to SIP, and they're physical SIP endpoints. And as far as session manager, system manager, we use Converge One for our, for a project back in March, and that is when we were introduced to session manager, system manager, and a lot of the things we know about it before coming to this class, because it took us some time to come to this training. We've learned on our own. So we feel pretty comfortable getting into SMGR and ASM, and we built endpoints, on our own, which was cool. But there's so much within that portal. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I'm hoping we touch, on a lot of those features, because even though we can get in there and kind of find stuff on our own, we're just used to looking at the same things,
Right.
So we'd like to. I'm sure we'll learn a lot more.
Yeah,
about
you'll
it.
get to see
There's like
way
3
more
menu
menus.
options, and we've
It's
probably touched
unbelievable.
2 of them only. One with the
Right.
IP office, and
The
the other
IP
one with
offices,
the
which you can
user
now access
management.
through there,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited, to say
Okay,
the least.
cool,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, you're gonna see we'll cover a lot of stuff in system manager. Actually, today it's gonna be all about system managers. We won't touch session manager today, but just system manager. You'll probably see menus that you haven't worked with before. And tomorrow we'll start dealing with session manager. But I want you to first feel comfortable with system manager, because that's how you end up configuring session manager. You cannot administer session manager directly. You have to do it through system manager. Okay, Alex, welcome. Wayne?
Wayne Ledbetter, I'm with Converge One. Been a tech for about 25 years, Avaya tech, and I know a lot about CM, but very little about system session manager as far as I administrate.
Okay, welcome, Wayne. Okay, perfect. You know what I like? That most of you are kind of in the same level with session manager and system manager, and that's good, because sometimes I have people in my classes that are already advanced with system manager and session manager, and in the same class I have someone who knows nothing about it, and it's kind of hard, because then I can't go with, too advanced, but at the same time I can't go too basic. So it looks like all of you are kind of in the same level. Let me talk about logistics, because I'm terrible with logistics. I always forget about breaks and all that stuff, so I need you to remind me. I get excited and completely forget about breaks, believe me. So we're gonna start at 9 every day, and if that's true, then we'll have our first break around, let's say, 10:30. Then if we have our break around 10:30, maybe lunch around 12:30, and another break around 2:30 p.m. And we'll be finishing around 4 p.m. every day. Okay, what else? It's the first time for the 3 of you here in this facility, right?
Correct.
So the restroom, also for you, Win? Okay. And the restroom is in this direction, and you'll find it, pretty much. Yeah. What else? I think that's it. All of you have a book?
Yes.
So it says part 1. There are 4 parts. I'm gonna give you 1 book every day. If you want to have all of the books today, just let me know. Okay, but I'm gonna give you 1 book every day, and pretty much we're gonna cover 1 part per day. Okay, I just don't want you to be full of books in your table so that you're more comfortable. Guys, if I say something that you don't understand, I mean, English is my second language, okay? So if I say something you don't understand, feel free to stop me. You won't hurt my feelings. Just be like, hey, Nestor, I couldn't understand a single word you said. Or can you please rephrase that? And I'll do the same thing with you. If you say something that I don't understand, I'll stop you and ask you to say it again or rephrase it. Okay, so we're done with the housekeeping and introduction. Let's see. This is stuff that we'll learn during this class, and actually we'll kind of learn more in this. We'll talk about the Avaya Aura network architecture, navigation of system manager, administration of system manager, not only administration of system manager, but user administration. So you're going to learn how to create users in system manager, and not only end users with zip phones, let's say, but also administrators with different roles. That's why we have user roles here. We'll talk about maintenance and troubleshooting in session manager, and then we'll start routing with session manager, and you'll learn that session manager is able to route calls in 2 different ways. One of them is known as registry routing, the other one is known as network routing policies. I'll talk about the differences between them. And we'll see some other things like importing in bulk. Like if you want to import, let's say, 1,000 users at the same time, there are some tools that you can use in System Manager, not only for importing things, but also for exporting. We'll talk about adaptations, which is one of the main capabilities of Session Manager, backup and restoring System Manager, licensing, just because it happens that System Manager has an embedded WebLM. So we'll talk about how it works. And managed elements, which are just applications that can be managed in System Manager when you add them to the inventory, and also some other stuff that is not in this slide. We're done with the introductions. Let's actually have an introduction to the labs. So every lab has all of these applications installed. Actually, you know what? They sent me 7.0 labs, which is good. I kind of like it. Okay, I kind of like it. So we had 6.3 labs, and in the 6.3 labs, they had a template with all of this stuff. Now, maybe some of you know that we no longer use templates in 7, but we just use a hypervisor that allows us to install as many virtual machines as we want, depending on the server resources. You know, like memory resources, CPU resources. So right now, we actually don't have all of these applications. We only have what we need, which is Session Manager, System Manager, and the utility server and CM. And let me see, let me make sure that the credentials are okay. CM, this is the IP address. And by the way, we have 4 labs. You're right now sitting in lab 1. We can say lab 10 or lab 1. Okay. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, or 10, 20, 30, 40. Okay? Remember that because for your IP addresses, this X, you know, the 3rd octet that you see here is going to change depending on your lab assignment. So if you're lab 1, this X here is going to be 10, sorry. If you're 2, 20, 3, 30, 4, 40. So if I ask you, hey, go ahead and access your CM, and you're in lab 3, let's say, you now know that you'll go to 192.168.30.4. And these are going to be the credentials, training for the username and training 1 for the password. That one is okay. Now, utility server, this is the IP address, and you don't have credentials here, but it's going to be admin, the username, maybe write it down, and password is going to be admin01.
That's for which one?
That's for the utility server. Now for System Manager, which by the way, notice that's SMGR. Every time you see SMGR, we're talking about System Manager. And every time you see SM, we're talking about Session Manager. I don't know why Avaya picked those names so close to one another, because those are completely different applications. So SMGR for System Manager, SM for Session Manager. Now, the username for System Manager is actually going to be lab X, which means it's going to be lab 10, lab 20, lab 30, lab 40. That's going to be the username. The password, it's gonna be not this, but it's gonna be C1 COE, and instead of 2016, 1, 2, 3 exclamation mark. So just replace 2016 with 1, 2, 3. So again, C1, C with capital letter, C1 COE, C1 COE 1, 2, 3 bank. Now for session manager, you're gonna learn later that session manager always has two interfaces. One of them is the SIP interface and the other one is the administrative interface. The administrative interface is the one that allows you to log into session manager. The username is gonna be customer, CUSTOMER, customer. And the password is gonna be cust1234. CUST1234.
All lowercase?
All lowercase, yeah.
And that was for what?
That was for session manager, and it's gonna be for this interface, SM Ethernet 0. You're gonna learn later that this one is the administrative interface, and this one, the SM100, is gonna be the SIP interface. But you cannot log in through the SIP interface. You have to do it through the administrative one. So for the administrative interface, the credentials to log in are going to be customer as the username, and then CUST1234 for the password. This is what we have for the lab topology, and maybe some of you noticed that we have some equipment in the back of the room. And pretty much what we have is 4 labs. Each lab has a server and a gateway. The server is an HP server with the VMware hypervisor, the ESXi. Are you guys familiar with VMware? A little bit, maybe not, it's okay. Just has a VMware hypervisor, and on top of that we have virtual machines. We have CM, session manager, system manager, and the utility server as the virtual machines running on top of that hypervisor. So we have that server, and then we have a G430. The only reason why we have that G430 there is because of the DSP channels in the G430. We don't have anything else. And now in release 7, we could get rid of that G430 and use the new Avaya or a media server that gives us virtual DSP channels. And we probably should be doing that in that lab instead of having all of that equipment sitting there. Taking advantage that we are in release 7 in that lab. But anyways, that's why we have a gateway. Only for those DSP channels. And that's it. Then per lab you have 2 laptops, because we normally have 2 people per lab, but right now Jesse and Wayne, you're lucky, the lucky ones, and you're just by yourself there. And then you guys have 3 phones per lab. 2 of them are going to be SIP phones, and the other one is going to be an H323 phone. Okay? And that's it. Then we have a router between the labs, so that later you're able to communicate between labs when you configure routing in your session managers. So at the beginning you're going to be just placing calls within the lab, and then later you'll configure routing to communicate with the other labs. Okay? That's pretty much what we have for the lab topology. Names, when you're going to be creating users, and sometimes some students struggle trying to come up with a name. So we have some names that you can use. I don't know. I encourage you to just go with any name you want to use. Now in page 9 we have some Linux basic commands. You don't need to be savvy with Linux here, but it always helps. You know, it always helps at least to know basic commands, like how to read a file, maybe how to copy a file, how to maybe remove a file. We won't actually need any of these during this class, but the one who created this manual thought that it would be, you know, like useful to have these commands. I'm not gonna go through them. Notice that page 9, 10, and 11 is just full of commands. I just, if you wanna go through them and wanna ask me about one of them, okay, we can talk about it, but I'll let you just go through that. Session manager overview. I'm actually gonna gonna position system manager and session manager without the slide, because I've been doing something that I found useful for a lot of people. A lot of people were already administering system manager and session manager, but they didn't have those applications correctly positioned in the overall picture. So let's see. Let me first find a marker that I like. Maybe that one. Okay, so for probably the last 30 years, all you had was this box, so let's say this server, let's say this application known as Communication Manager. It's the Avaya PBX, and the Avaya PBX allows you to have what kind of endpoints, what kind of phones? Help me here. Digital, right? Or let's say, yeah, digital, what else?
Analog and H323.
Pretty much those three types. Digital, analog, and as you said, H323. And I like that you're saying H223 instead of IP, because now IP phones could be H223 or SIP, depending on the signaling protocol that they use to communicate with the servers. Okay, so these three types of phones, and then that was it. Then CM also allows you to have trunks to communicate with the external world, and most of the time those trunks were digital trunks. And here in the States, the most common trunks were T1s, right? In Colombia, for example, we use E1s, but it's still a digital trunk with some channels. And this is pretty much what you had for probably the last 30 years. But then voice over IP started to become more popular and popular, to a point that the carrier that was giving you these T1s said, hey, I could give you some IP trunks. We're gonna call them SIP trunks because of the signaling protocol that they use. But I'm gonna give you these SIP trunks and everything is gonna be cheaper, you know, like, and what they don't tell you is that it's also cheaper for them. That's why they wanna push things going in that direction. So they say, okay, we're gonna give you these trunks. They're gonna be SIP trunks. And they also tell you that the only thing that you need to terminate those trunks is an application known as the SBC.
A session border controller.
The session border controller. That SBC, as the name implies, controls sessions on the border. So your SBC is about security. It's all about security, because it's the demarcation point. You know, after the SBC, then you could be on the internet, depending on the type of SIP trunks that you have, or maybe an MPLS network, but you want to have security here. So the SBC is all about security. The SBC is all about NAT. What's NAT? Network address translation, which means that your SBC is going to convert between your internal private IP addresses to an external domain, to an external IP addresses and external domain. What else? The SBC could do. The SBC could, if it's an Avaya SBC, you could do something known as remote worker that allows you to register a SIP phone through the SBC with session manager and without the need of a VPN. It'll be just SIP registration. Okay, so this is a feature that depends on the type of license that you have, but it could be useful. You know, if you want to register SIP users later here through the SBC without the need of a VPN. But not all of the SBCs have that functionality, but the Avaya SBC has it. Okay, that's the SBC. And you get it, you configure it, and now you're able to have those SIP trunks. Okay? What a lot of people don't know is that at this point, you could eventually connect your CM directly with the SBC. CM supports direct SIP trunking since release 4. So we could connect CM with the SBC, no problem. CM only supports SIP over either TLS or TCP. And usually these trunks carry SIP messages over UDP. So the SBC would convert between either TLS or TCP to UDP. Okay? And then you could benefit from those SIP trunks, which are going to be cheaper for you, and as long as you have the SBC.
And most SBCs can do adaptations as well, although in
Yeah.
most of our environments it'll be
Yes.
done in Session
And,
Manager.
yeah, and as a matter of fact, the SBC is more powerful when doing adaptations, because when you do adaptations in Session Manager, which are pretty much SIP modifications, you know, in case you want to modify SIP headers, and not only about SIP headers, but also allows you to modify the dial number and the dialing number. But yes, the SBC is capable of doing adaptations, and that's actually more flexible than Session Manager, because Session Manager is only able to modify certain SIP headers, while the SBC is capable of modifying most of the SIP headers. Okay? However, at this point, Avaya says, hey, hold on. If you want to benefit from SIP on the outside, why don't you benefit from SIP inside? And it's when they give you, or they position Session Manager in the middle. So instead of connecting directly, they position Session Manager in the middle. And the benefit of Session Manager is that Session Manager is a SIP routing engine and a SIP integrator. So now you could integrate with some applications as long as they speak SIP, because all Session Manager speaks is SIP. So you could integrate with maybe the Avaya voicemail, let's say. What's the name of the Avaya voicemail?
Or a message.
Avaya or a messaging. You could integrate with the Avaya IVR. What's the name of the IVR? Experience Portal?
Yep.
Or, what I actually like, is you could integrate with any third-party application. You know, as long as that third-party application speaks SIP. So you integrate those with Session Manager. What's the benefit of that integration? Well, the benefit is that for these endpoints that you see here, your digital analog H223 endpoints, if they require a feature that CM doesn't provide, as long as you make that call go through Session Manager, your Session Manager could invoke a third-party feature server that provides that feature. You know? So now you don't need to wait for Avaya to be like, okay, in the next release we'll provide that feature here in CM, but you could develop your own features and have them here as a third-party feature server. Or actually, Avaya has actually a platform that allows you to develop your features. So you could buy what Avaya calls Avaya Breeze, and on top of Breeze, you could develop your own features. Or if you're not a developer, you could buy features from other developers. And now there is an Avaya market where you just buy applications and you install them on top of the Avaya Breeze, just as you do it with the Android market or the Apple market, where you just go buy applications and install them on your phone. So now there's the same thing with Avaya, where you just buy applications. They are known as snap-ins that you install on top of Breeze and provide some functionality to your users. So it's all of this happens because Session Manager is capable of integrating with those applications via SIP. Now, Session Manager also allows you to have things like this. For example, you could integrate with other PBXs, other vendor PBXs, like for example, a Cisco PBX. And you could benefit from this type of integration. You could have things like, for example, these endpoints here, getting to maybe have a voicemail on the Avaya voicemail. You know, because Session Manager is in the middle, converting between the zip headers that Cisco understands and the zip headers that Avaya understands. So this is another benefit that you could have. You could integrate with other vendor PBXs. And not only that, but I haven't even mentioned zip phones at this point. So Session Manager also allows you to register zip phones. And what's cool is that they could be non-Avaya zip phones, third-party zip phones. If it's a third-party zip phone, it registers with Session Manager, and it could get features from these application servers. They just don't get features from CM if it's a third-party zip phone. But it'll have basic functionality. You know, as a zip phone, you'll be able to place a call, receive a call, some basic functionality. You won't have the Avaya CM features, but maybe you have features here, you know, and you're able to provide those features maybe through the Avaya Breeze or maybe through a third-party feature set. For Avaya zip phones, those phones register with Session Manager and grab features from CM through a zip trunk that you build here. So it's cool. It's nice because it opens the door also for you to maybe work with not Avaya phones in case you wanna, I don't know, in case you have a remote branch and you don't wanna, you know, normally when you buy an Avaya solution and you see the price, the most expensive stuff is the licenses and the phones,
The endpoints,
you know, and the endpoints. So maybe you could save some money there by going with some third-party zip phones if you know that those users are not going to be actually needing a lot of features, you know, or maybe those are phones that are just for common areas, something like that. So maybe you don't need to go with an Avaya phone, but with another type of phone from another vendor. So this is the big picture. Remember, these are zip phones. Now, notice that at this point, you probably have survivability here in CM with survivable servers like the LSPs or ESSs. So if you have survivability here on CM, it only makes sense to have survivability here as well. So that's why you end up with more than one session manager. And if you have survivability here in session manager, it only makes sense to have survivability here on the SBC. And that's why you probably end up with more than one SBC, right? Because now all of those servers are in your call path, right? So just probably you end up with more than one session manager and more than one SBC. Now notice that I haven't even mentioned System Manager, because System Manager is another application. Just gonna put it here. SMGR is another application, and it's all about administration. So System Manager allows you to administer the applications in the UC portfolio, pretty much. One of them is Session Manager. As a matter of fact, you cannot administer Session Manager directly. You must do it from System Manager. There are only two Avaya applications in the UC portfolio that require you to administer them with System Manager. And those two applications are Session Manager and the Presence Services. You must administer those two from System Manager. So that's what System Manager is all about. So if you lose your System Manager, if your System Manager goes down, you're actually not losing any service, you know, any vital service. All you're losing is the capability of administering certain applications like Session Manager. Is that critical? Could be, maybe. Maybe you have a huge call center with SIP endpoints, SIP agents. And in a call center, you probably know that you do a lot of changes, a lot of modifications daily. So maybe having your System Manager down is not a good thing because you cannot do those changes, you know, daily. So because of that, System Manager also could be redundant. And Avaya offers the option to have two System Managers, one as an active server and the other one as the standby server. Okay, but again, if your system mark goes down, all you're losing is the administration capability. System manager is not only for you to administer session manager, but you could potentially, and I just picked the wrong marker, you could potentially administer, if you want, CM. And right now it's kind of optional, you know, but Avaya is pushing things in that direction. Some people like it, some others don't like it. The reason why some people don't like it is because you're moving from administering CM from a terminal emulator, which is fast, quick, from doing it from a browser. And a browser has, you know, some delays associated to the browser. And then, well, people don't like it. I think that in release 7, things are quicker than in 6.3 and 6.2. And you'll see that there's also in system manager a way to administer CM running commands the same way you do it when you go directly via ASA. So we'll see we'll cover that during this week, and we'll see at the end if you like it or you hate it. But Avaya is pushing things in that direction, which means that in a future release you won't be able to keep administering CM using something like ASA or PADI or any way of administering CM directly, but you have to do it through system manager. Okay? Avaya, as a matter of fact, is just developing some service packs for ASA to administer CM release 7, 7.1, but it's still, if you notice, the version of your ASA is still going to be 6 dot something, service pack 12, 13,
Yeah.
something like that. But they're going to stop developing things on the ASA because they want you to do it from system manager. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want you to administer everything from system manager as a centralized point of administration.
You could also administer the Aura voicemail through System Manager?
Yeah.
Yes, I heard that.
Yeah, you could administer the Aura voicemail, IP Office, the conferencing solutions, which is now rebranded as Equinox. Let's see, Breeze, the messaging, the messaging applications that you mentioned. You'll see the menus, and with every release they have more applications that can be administered.
Yeah, IP Office is one of the things we can administer through System Manager.
Yeah.
It uses a Java applet to give you like an interface to what you used to be able to see when you directly administered the IP offices.
Yeah. So the idea is that most of the applications in the UC portfolio are going to be administered through System Manager. And this is it. This is the big picture. You know, this is what you probably have right now, and why you have it right now. Maybe some of you already have SIP endpoints. Maybe some of you are using it for integrations with other applications, and if not, maybe you're just using it just to have it ready for future integrations. You know. Questions? Something important. Session Manager is a signaling server. It's all about signaling. There is no media going through Session Manager. So no voice, no video, no media pretty much goes through Session Manager. It's all about signaling. Okay? So for example, if one of these phones, digital analog or H23, want to communicate through the SBC, you know, make an external call, the media, the call setup, which is going to happen through SIP messages, will go from CM to Session Manager to the SBC. The media will go from CM to the SBC, never through Session Manager. Session Manager is all about SIP signaling. Okay? Remember that. Through the SBC, you do have signaling messages for call setup. Those are going to be your SIP messages. And media, which is going to happen with another protocol, RTP, the real-time protocol. That's through the SBC. Through Session Manager, it's all about SIP messages. It's all about signaling. It's all about call control. No media goes through the Session Manager. Okay? Now, in page 13, you have this drawing here, this graphic